Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. Over the past week, I dropped videos ranking all of the party members, homeworlds, and origins in Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. I want to continue with that ranking series by now moving on to archetypes. The archetypes in this game are incredibly well done and very diverse. They are at different tiers, and which option you select at tier 1 impacts what's available on tier 2. Consequently, it's quite a bit of complexity to figuring out what is the best option. Therefore, I thought it would be fun to compare them and try to determine what are the top tier selections. Please keep in mind, honestly, there's no such thing as a bad pick here. All of them are worthy selections depending on what type of build or playstyle you are going for. Some of them, however, clearly provide mechanics that are more powerful than what their peers can offer. This video closes out everything I had planned for the Rogue Trader ranking series. The next video I'm working on is a 2025 beginner's guide, so make sure you're on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. If there's any other Rogue Trader content you want to see, let me know down in the comments. As I mentioned before, there are 3 tiers of archetypes. You can select one archetype from the first tier regardless of what you choose during character creation. After 15 levels, you will max out tier 1 archetypes, and then you can select from the tier 2 list. Which tier 2 archetypes are available depends on which tier 1 archetype you started with. So if you started as an officer, you can select Vanguard, but you cannot select Bounty Hunter. Or if you are a Blade Dancer, you can go into Executioner, but Vanguard is closed to you. It's important to know upfront how you want your character to advance. After 20 levels, your tier 2 archetype will be maxed out, and then everyone goes into Exemplar, regardless of what their previous tier selections were. All archetypes except Exemplar will come with their own keystone features, which are passives and or abilities that enhance the playstyle. You will be able to select from a list of optional talents and abilities that center around the keystone features. In addition, at level 4, you will receive an ultimate ability. Each archetype, except for Exemplar, has a unique ultimate ability that you can also upgrade twice as you advance in levels. All archetypes also come with a list of characteristics and skills that you can increase at specific levels. This list can potentially expand based on what origin you selected during character creation. For example, Soldier by itself will not allow you to increase willpower. However, if you are a Psyker, then willpower will be added to the list. In this video, I am going to focus on what's best about each archetype and why they are ranked in specific spots, but I'm not going to comb through all of their mechanics. I have made separate videos doing that for each archetype, and you can find those links in the description below if that information interests you. All right, I believe that's enough of an introduction, so let's go ahead and get started. All the way down at the bottom, number 14 is Vanguard. To select this tier 2 archetype, your tier 1 archetype must have been warrior or officer. Vanguard is focused on tanking and opens up a playstyle where you wait for enemies to attack you and then deliver vicious counterattacks instead of seeking them out directly. To help accomplish this, the archetype automatically gives you the key feature Unyielding Beacon, which increases by +1 stacks every time you are attacked. Each stack will increase your resolve by up to 15, and nearby allies receive 1/5 of this bonus. In addition, temporary wounds stack, and it will be a simple task to get a lot of them. All of this is nice, but the real claim to fame is Defensive Stance, which provides an increased chance to parry enemies that scales with your Unyielding Beacon stacks, and then you get an attack of opportunity against enemies that you parry. Most likely, your parry capabilities were already high, and this just helps to ensure you'll dominate any enemy that crosses your path. The Heroic Act Unyielding Guard is this ability on steroids, automatically allowing you to counter any enemy who comes within a 3-cell radius around you. All of that might make it sound like this archetype leans heavily towards warriors, but it's actually insane for officers as well. Follow My Lead provides significant bonuses to damage and armor penetration that scale scale with your fellowship rating for all allies within a 2-cell radius. Also, Forced Distraction allows you to select one ally, and then all enemies within a 10-cell radius around them have to pass a willpower resistance test, or you will become their priority target, potentially setting them up for counterattacks. On top of these amazing abilities, you of course have a list of unique talents to choose from as well. This playstyle is very effective and it can be a lot of fun. I rank this archetype at the bottom of this list because Vanguard is a passive and time-consuming way to play Rogue Trader. Why wait for enemies to attack when you can just eliminate them? Why taunt them and hope that they hit you? I don't agree with some players who feel that Rogue Trader is mind-numbingly easy, but it's definitely not the type of game where you need a dedicated tank, and therefore you are almost going out of your way to include one. Again, this playstyle can be very fun and certainly effective, but it's also unnecessary. Next, at number 13, we have Grand Strategist. To select this tier 2 archetype, you must start as an operative or an officer. Grand Strategist gives you the ability to deploy combat zones on the battlefield that provide massive bonuses for your allies while also significantly debuffing your enemies. You get this right off the bat with the key feature Combat Tactics. This gives you a front line, back line, and rear zone to deploy. For each one of these zones, the first 1 or 2 percentages listed scale off your intelligence bonus, while the last one scales off your fellowship bonus. The frontline zone provides all allies with a bonus to armor, while also increasing the amount of damage that enemies receive. This is great to use up front on allies like Pascal and Abelard, who depend on armor for their defense. It's also great against boss enemies who are more resistant to damage. The backline zone provides all allies with a bonus to cover efficiency, dodge, and dodge reduction. This is amazing for party members like Cassia, Argenta, and Marazai, who depend on dodge for defense. It's even more impactful against enemies who heavily rely on dodge, like the Aldari. Finally, the rear zone provides a bonus to damage with ranged attacks, over penetration, and critical hit chance. This is incredible for characters like Erliet with her sniper rifle, or Pascal if he is using plasma weapons. Sometimes I place it closer to the front line to help shotgun users like Solomorn as well. On your first turn, you can place all 3 zones, but on subsequent turns, you will only be able to place one. Zones cannot overlap each other, so it's not possible to have all the bonuses working in one cell. A Grand Strategist automatically always goes first in combat, which ensures your zones are placed before anything else happens. In Rogue Trader, initiative is calculated in a convoluted manner, so automatically going first is a big deal that provides a major advantage. The abilities and talents you are given all center around the zones and make their bonuses more potent. The class is ranked near the bottom for 2 reasons. First, too many people find the mechanics cumbersome and complicated to use. Positioning is obviously key with the zones, and you need to thoroughly understand what each one provides to utilize it effectively. Personally, I don't think it's that complex, but it's become clear that a lot of players disagree, so that definitely factors into the ranking. Second, even those of us who understand the mechanics, most of the time just give Cassia this archetype, because having her go first in combat is so powerful. That's the only part that matters for her though, as the navigator talents and abilities she can access are too good to pass up. So while I still have her place zones, since those are provided automatically, she never takes any of the additional mechanics that Grand Strategist has available. Having 2 Grand Strategists on the team isn't useless, because while you cannot double up on zones, you can move and buff each other's zones. The problem is that the mechanics provided aren't nearly good enough to justify having 2 people with this archetype on the same team. Therefore, the amount of people who are taking Grand Strategist and selecting its abilities and talents to actually make full use of everything it has can fit in a thimble. It's basically a build dip, and therefore I cannot rank it higher. Coming up at number 12, we have Operative. This is a tier 1 archetype, and it's the clear go-to option if you are focusing on intelligence. Operative focuses on marking enemies to significantly increase the damage that you and your allies are able to dish out against them. Right from the start, you get the key feature Analyze Enemies, which is both a passive and an ability that you can can use. The passive form is triggered at the start of your turn and places one exploit or mark on all foes within your line of sight. If you hit an enemy that has an exploit, your attack will deal 10% more damage along with additional damage for each stack of the effect on that enemy. The second damage increase is at least 15% and scales with your perception bonus. The ability version of this allows you to place a number of exploits on a target that's equal to your intelligence bonus. So basically, this ability and passive let you use intelligence and perception as a way to set up enemies for major damage. Operative is also notable for allowing players to be both stronger supporters and damage dealers. If you want to focus on support, joint analysis allows attacks from your allies to remove exploits the same way you can, and those attacks will deal additional damage equal to your intelligence bonus. This is really nice right from the start of the game. If you are focused on damage, then tactical knowledge will be equally helpful. This allows you to lay down an area of effect that pulls one exploit from all impacted enemies and then applies the tally to you as additional damage. If only one enemy is in the effect, then it will pull all of the exploits off that particular foe. I find it effective to use analyze enemies and deploy this against that one foe, so I get a massive boost to my damage. On top of these combat mechanics, it's worth noting that having someone on your team who has high ranks and intelligence can be very beneficial because so many skills work off that characteristic. Operative makes it much easier for this type of character to be effective. I ranked it lower on the list for a couple of reasons. First, it's definitely the weakest out of all your tier 1 archetype options from a combat perspective. The rest of them can straight up clear a room, and while operative can do very solid damage, it usually won't wow you. Another issue is many players just have a hard time grasping the mechanics. Similar to Grand Strategists, I don't think the systems here are as complicated as people make them, but it's definitely less intuitive than the other archetypes that you can play. I have a third reason for why operative is ranked so low, and it's actually my biggest issue, but before we can get into that, I need to cover the next ranking. Number 11 on the list is Bounty Hunter. I can already hear the cries of rage from all the people who swear by this option, and let me make it absolutely clear, it's taken all the discipline in my being to not place Bounty Hunter all the way at the bottom of the list. This option sucks. I don't give a damn how much damage it does. Bounty Hunter is a tier 2 archetype, and you must have selected operative or soldier at tier 1 in order to get access to it. The key feature is hunt down the prey, which allows you to mark an enemy, and when you kill these foes, you'll receive a stackable bonus until the end of combat. The bonus is different based on what difficulty tier your enemy is. At tier 1 or 2, you'll gain 25% of your maximum wounds as temporary wounds, which might be useful if you are serving as the group's tank. At tier 3 or 4, you get additional critical hit chance and damage that scales with the difficulty of your enemy. Anything higher than that, and both bonuses will be applied. You get 3 uses of prey at the start of combat, and it costs no action points to mark enemies. Some of you probably already see a problem with this system. You don't get a buff until you kill something. So these mechanics are not here to help you take out bosses and elites. Oh no, you need to do that yourself. But after you have taken out one of the toughest enemies on the field, then this archetype really kicks in. So at the start of every fight, you have to make a decision. Do I mark weaker enemies that I am sure to take out and accept lesser bonuses, or do I go for top tier enemies that will provide much greater rewards, but potentially I won't be able to defeat them this turn and the mark will be wasted? Many of the talents and abilities you can take as a bounty hunter will also scale off the enemy's difficulty tier, pushing you even more to attack the most well-guarded foes. I'm well aware some of you love all this, but in my opinion, it's just exasperating. All of the other archetypes buff you prior to the attack to help you wipe out mass amounts of enemies. Bounty Hunter instead says you need to prove yourself worthy of the bonuses that it provides. Many of the talents in this archetype require you to kill an enemy first, score a critical hit first, or just in general make an attack before the positive effects are triggered. So right at the start of combat, you'll be weaker than all of your peers, and you'll need to burn at least one attack to trigger bonuses that help you really get going. There is a powerful support path in this archetype where you empower ally attacks against enemies you mark as prey. My issue here is that your blade dancers, arch militants, and assassins are all going to be wickedly powerful with or without those buffs. Therefore, you can make the case that the path which focuses on dealing greater damage will benefit the team more. Let's circle back to Operative again, because I mentioned there was one more reason I ranked it low. There was already a knock against that archetype because people find the mechanics to be overly complicated. Well, the clear upgrade path, if you are strictly focused on damage, goes to Bounty Hunter. I like Overseer a lot. As you can see, it's ranked higher, but it just doesn't have the same damage potential that Bounty Hunter has. That being said, you are taking the weakest and most convoluted tier 1 archetype and then combining it with another archetype that is equally, if not more complex. All for rewards that are certainly powerful, but not in ways that cannot be mimicked by other far less complicated options. Overall, I avoid Bounty Hunter like the plague, and I won't be mad if some of you believe it should be ranked even lower on this list. Alright, now we have reached the top 10 archetypes in Rogue Trader. This is a good time to remind you there's a link in our Discord in the description below, which is filled with people who love talking about all things Warhammer and Rogue Trader related. Be sure to check it out. Number 10 on the list is Executioner. This option is only available if you have purchased the Void Shadows expansion. It is a tier 2 archetype that you can only select if you chose Blade Dancer, Warrior, or Operative as your tier 1 option. If you want to supercharge damage over time effects like burning and bleeding, there's no better way to do it. Right up front, you get 3 keystone features that all work in tandem. First, you get Force Repentance, which is triggered when you inflict a damage over time effect on someone who is already experiencing a DOT of the same type, and it causes them to suffer an additional instance of damage. In addition, all levels of this effect will be increased by an amount that scales with your Metakai score. There are multiple other mechanics in this archetype that scale with Metakai, so it basically allows you to weaponize high ranks in that skill. You'll get the most out of Executioner if you can repeatedly apply the same DOT on a target. On that note, you also get Scourging Strikes, which causes all of your melee attacks to inflict levels of bleed equal to twice your strength bonus. Without this, only specific weapons would consistently cause bleeding, but with it, your second melee attack on the same target will always trigger Force Repentance. Finally, you get Where It Hurts, which is triggered on your next attack and causes an enemy to suffer 3 instances of damage from all DOT effects they are currently experiencing. This damage occurs after all effects from your attack are applied, and in the right situation, it's a boss killer. If you are a non-psyker character, this archetype is cool, but not that crazy, because most likely you will only be able to consistently apply one DOT effect. Psykers, on the other hand, can easily get to the point where all melee attacks apply burning, bleeding, and poison effects. Needless to say, that's insanely powerful when combined with these mechanics. There's an overwhelming consensus among Rogue Trader faithful that a Psyker Blade Dancer combined with Executioner is the most powerful build in the entire game and can pretty much solo all encounters. The major drawback that caused me to rank this archetype lower is that it mainly works for melee psychers. Again, you could play it as a non-psyker, but you will be significantly less effective. Ranged psychers won't be able to inflict bleed, and you would have to choose Operative as your starting archetype instead of Soldier, which is very painful. Therefore, while this option is powerful, the amount of builds that can effectively make use of it are limited, so I put it lower on the list. Next at number 9, we have Overseer, which is only available if you have purchased the Lex Imperialis expansion. This is a tier 2 archetype that is only available to officers, operatives, and characters who have chosen the arbitrator origin. Overseer is a little odd in that it's a great pickup for a wide variety of different playstyles, but at the same time, most of these mechanics aren't nearly as powerful as what you can get elsewhere. There's still a lot of fun to be had here, which does give it an edge. Overseer has more variety in its mechanics than any of the other archetypes. Your keystone feature is actually a choice between 4 different familiars: Cyber Eagle, Cyber Mastiff, Cyber Raven, and the Servo Skull Swarm. Not only do all of these familiars have different mechanics, but they all interact with your archetype in different ways. A clear standout is the Cyber Raven, which allows Psychers to take single target abilities and apply them to all nearby enemies or allies. Having a Psyker on your team who almost strictly invests into buffs is now a major boon. Another standout here is the Servo Skull Swarm when combined with Officer, because when an ally gets an extra turn within the swarm's area of effect, another random ally will get an extra turn as well. Needless to say, that's incredibly useful and let your party pump out a lot more damage. The drawback here, again, is that while all of the mechanics are very useful, outside of Cyber Raven, none of them really wipe out a room or completely change the trajectory of a fight. One more extra turn is cool. Having a dog that follows you and deals damage when you do is cool. Applying more exploits on enemies is cool. It's fun in general having a pet that assists you in everything that you do, but it's definitely not game breaking compared to archetypes that are higher up on this list. Coming up at number 8 is Assassin. This is a tier 2 archetype that is only available if you selected Warrior, Operative, or Blade Dancer at tier 1. Assassin is, no surprise, all about damage and blowing up single targets. Without question, the star of the show here is Killing Edge, which you can pick up at level 2. In my Assassin mechanics breakdown video released during the Rogue Trader beta, I said this ability was trash and you should skip over it. Many of you rightfully raked me over the coals for that assessment, and since that time I now see how glorious it really is. Killing Edge allows you to do an attack that provides an enemy a 40% increased chance to dodge. Consequently, I originally passed over this because it seemed very difficult to land with it consistently, but that's just a skill issue. You need to utilize a variety of buffs and debuffs against enemies that allow Killing Edge to shine, because when it lands, you will deal additional damage equal to a fifth of your lethality rating. Lethality is a unique assassin mechanic that equals your dodge or dodge reduction rating, whichever one is higher, and it's used to add damage in a variety of ways. This damage is also increased by the percentage of the target's missing wounds. So in general, it will deal big damage, but if it's a boss type enemy who has taken a lot of damage but still hasn't gone down, Killing Edge will explode for massive destruction. This is obviously great for melee combatants, but Assassin truly shines with snipers who wield sniper rifles that will have a great deal of dodge reduction or additional hit chance, which nullifies some or all of the Killing Edge penalty. This allows you to easily eliminate high priority targets who are tucked away in hard to reach corners of the battlefield. That functionality is very useful throughout the entire game. The reason Assassin is in the middle of the pack is that it's all or nothing. Everything revolves around ensuring that Killing Edge hits. If it does, great, but it's still only one attack. If it doesn't, then it's a big letdown until your next turn. There are other mechanics like Seek the Opening and Elusive Shadow that will certainly help you, but Killing Edge is the real game changer, and its availability is very limited. For that reason, it doesn't outpace some of the higher tier options. Next up at number 7, we have Arch Militant. This is a tier 2 archetype that is only available if you selected Warrior, Soldier, or Blade Dancer as your tier 1 option. Arch Militant is amazing if you are comfortable switching up between different attack types and or you want to focus heavily on heavy weapons. Right off the bat, you get versatility, which is triggered when you use an attack type that is different from the last attack that you dealt and adds 1 stack of this effect. So basically, if your last attack was a single swing, then your next attack you could instead use cleave and gain a stack of versatility accordingly. This also works with psyker abilities. Each stack provides a +3 bonus to weapon skill and ballistic skill, which means not only does versatility help you hit enemies, but it also helps you critically hit them. In addition, if you get 4 more stacks of versatility, it will provide you at minimum a 13% increase to damage when using either melee or ranged weapons. So all in all, this is extremely powerful stuff, but it doesn't stop there, because you could also gain access to the wildfire ability, which is basically another free attack. Soldier characters can consistently pump out 3 attacks in 1 turn with this ability, and obviously that's a big deal. You can also select a heroic act upgrade that will allow you to use both your arch militant and your warrior or soldier heroic act in the same fight, whereas all other characters will only be able to use a heroic act from 1 archetype. Really great stuff. Finally, Arch Militant has the Heavy Gunner talent, which reduces the action point cost for attacks with heavy weapons by 1. That's a massive help, because action points are hard to come by for most of the game. Heavy Bolter Arch Militants are some of the most fun and devastating characters in all of Rogue Trader. All of this together makes Arch Militant a great choice, pretty much regardless of your playstyle. The drawback here is probably obvious. You need to consistently switch up your attacks. That's a very fun way to play, but oftentimes the most effective way to deal with an enemy is doing the same thing over and over again until it dies, but that will limit your versatility stacks. This archetype is perfect for characters who want to switch between melee and ranged attacks, but your tier 1 talents will almost certainly focus on one area or the other, so it can be difficult to play that type of character effectively. This makes me place Arch Militant a little lower, despite how awesome it can be. Next up at number 6, we have Warrior. This is an amazing tier 1 option for rogue traders who want to deal a ton of melee damage. The keystone feature here is Charge, and it's one of the best abilities in the entire game. You move in a straight line towards an opponent and then launch a melee attack. The attack doesn't count towards your attack limit per turn, so you can then perform another attack of your choosing. Charge can be used after you have exhausted all your movement points, so warriors are oftentimes the most mobile characters on the field, especially in Act 1. They can also pump out much more damage since they can oftentimes attack twice. In addition to this, warriors have the 3rd best heroic act in the game. We haven't talked about heroic acts much because frankly the options at tier 1 are oftentimes significantly better than what you can get at tier 2, and warrior is part of the reason for that. Daring Breach immediately restores all AP and MP while also providing additional MP until the end of your turn. You do not lose MP after performing attacks, and you have no limit on melee weapon attacks during this turn. There's a heroic act upgrade that provides a +4 bonus to movement points every time you kill something until the end of combat, and you can use MP after attacking. So basically, Daring Breach can allow you to almost endlessly move and kill, move and kill, move and kill until everything on the screen has been wiped out. In the right situation, it's an absolute room clearer. The only knock I have against Warrior that brings it down on the list is frankly, it's kind of boring compared to the competition. All of the archetypes higher on the list have really cool mechanics that keep you engaged and switch things up based on the situation. Warrior is pretty much always the same, and while it's incredibly effective, it's also very easy for the rotation to get dull quite fast. For that reason, it just barely doesn't crack the top 5 archetypes for me. Alright, we have now reached the top 5 archetypes in Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. You've gotten this far, so obviously you are having a great time. go ahead and leave your boy a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps out the channel and I appreciate all of the support. Coming up at number 5, we have Master Tactician. This is a tier 2 archetype that is only available if your tier 1 choice was Officer, Soldier, or Blade Dancer. Right off the bat, that gives Master Tactician an edge because you will start with one of the top 5 archetypes no matter what. Master Tactician will build on that strong foundation by providing a wealth of mechanics that are fantastic whether you are focused on support, augmenting your own damage, or generating significantly more momentum. Right off the bat, you get Tactical Advantage, which increases by 1 stack every time you or an ally gains 5 momentum. You will begin combat with a number of stacks equal to your fellowship bonus. All of your abilities revolve around stacking Tactical Advantage as high as possible. You also automatically get Press the Advantage, which empowers your next attack by 4% for every stack of Tactical Advantage you have. This could very easily be a 40% buff to your damage by mid-game, and needless to say, that's an insane amount. Using this ability reduces your TA stacks by half, but that's not a concern because you'll just build them right back up. Inspire gives either yourself or an ally a bonus of 5% damage and an additional 5% damage increase for every 10 stacks of TA that you have, but again, you will lose half of your TA stacks. This effect is weaker than Press the Advantage, but again, you can use it on allies and it stacks until the end of combat. On top of this, if your target uses a heroic act before the beginning of your next turn, you will gain 25 momentum. Remember, momentum is a team-wide stat, so really the entire squad gains 25 momentum, and it puts you that much closer to getting yet another heroic act. Speaking of momentum, another great option is Linchpin, which allows you to target an ally or yourself and provides +1 resolve for every 5 stacks of TA. Once again, you lose half of your TA stacks, but this effect stacks and lasts until the end of combat. In addition, until your next turn, you gain additional stacks of TA that scales with your fellowship bonus when the target of this ability generates momentum. By the time you pick up this archetype, how quickly your team is able to activate heroic acts is a major factor in how smoothly combat progresses. Therefore, having an archetype that focuses on stacking resolve and generating more momentum quickly on top of massive damage boost is a major boon for the team. This archetype is a ton of fun, highly effective whether you want to focus on yourself or buffing allies, and there's a nice variety of different mechanics that you can play with. No question, it's a great choice for a wide variety of builds. Moving on to number 4, we have Soldier. If your main priority is range damage, whether it be from guns or psyker abilities, this is definitely the way to go. Right off the bat, you get one of the most powerful abilities in Rogue Trader, Run and Gun. This gives you additional movement points that scales with your agility, and more importantly, it allows you to execute another attack. This attack costs 1 action point less and doesn't count towards your attack limit per turn. This makes soldiers supreme damage dealers because not only can they attack multiple times, but they can do it against enemies regardless of where they are, as opposed to warriors who can only attack enemies within melee distance. After you use this ability, you get the Winded status, and you cannot use it again for 1 round unless you are able to activate Revel in Slaughter. This can only be used after you have killed 3 enemies, and it provides a +10 bonus to ballistic skill along with large increases to critical hit chance and crit damage that scales with your agility bonus. In addition, this ability removes the Winded effect so you can use Run and Gun again. That allows you to create a rotation where potentially on every turn you are either straight up using Run and Gun, or you are activating Revel in Slaughter and then using Run and Gun, consistently pumping out at least 2 attacks on every turn right from the start of the game, while also significantly increasing core stats. absolutely bananas. On top of all this, Soldier has the second best heroic act in the game. Firearm Mastery lets them make a number of extra attacks equal to their weapon's rate of fire, and each attack against a new enemy automatically scores a critical hit. This is a flat out room clear more than any other ability in the game, especially if your weapon has a high rate of fire like a bolter. Soldier also has some of the best talents in the game, rewarding a variety of different playstyles. Demolition Engineer is essential for any character who plans to make heavy use of area attacks. Second Skin makes you significantly more tanky if you don't like using cover, and Camaraderie rewards you for meticulous positioning. Most of your abilities scale off agility, which is a very useful characteristic since it also determines your dodge rating and helps give you more initiative. That's honestly just the tip of the iceberg, as there's a lot more to love about Soldier. Bottom line, this archetype is incredible, and it's only at the 4th spot because the ones above it are just so amazing in their own right. Alright, now we have entered the top 3 list, and these remaining archetypes are essentially game changers. All of the other archetypes we have covered are essentially interchangeable, at least on some level. Soldier does incredible damage, but so can Operative. It's just more cumbersome and takes a longer amount of time to get similar results. Bounty Hunter is great at buffing, but so is Grand Strategist or Master Tactician. These last 3 archetypes are simply a cut above the rest and provide a feeling of power that isn't easily replicated by any of the other options. First, at number 3, we have Blade Dancer, which is only available if you have purchased the Void Shadows expansion. Blade Dancer is the most powerful damage dealing archetype in the entire game by far. You could potentially solo the entire game with just these mechanics. Towards the beginning, it can be a bit of a glass cannon, but as you progress, Blade Dancers become equally unstoppable both offensively and defensively. Right off the bat, you get Blade Dance, which lets you make a number of melee attacks against random adjacent characters that scales with your agility bonus. Each attack deals 50% less damage than normal, but it doesn't matter because there are so many of them, this will shred most enemies. Death from Above is automatically available at level 3, and it allows you to jump into any unoccupied cell within a 3-cell radius that is in your line of sight. You will deal damage to all adjacent enemies equal to your agility and weapon skill bonus combined. This ability does not count towards your attack limit per turn, so you can keep using it as long as you have charges. Additional charges can be earned by killing enemies with an ability other than Death from Above. This means in a turn where no heroic acts have been used, Blade Dancer can chain together more attacks than any other archetype. You can also take the ability Blood Oath, which sacrifices an amount of wounds that scales with your Blade Dancer level. In return, you select one target, and then your next attack against that enemy cannot be dodged or parried. If this attack kills the target, you regain an amount of wounds that scales with your toughness bonus and gain 1 action point along with an additional attack that turn. You can also take the Blood Rush talent, which is triggered every time you use an ability that costs wounds and increases your movement points by 3. This combination is bananas because now every time you need more movement points, you could just use Blood Oath, and consequently the Blade Dancer can keep moving and killing to near infinity even without a heroic act. The obvious downside is that this makes your character very squishy because you are losing a lot of health and potentially gaining injuries or trauma. There are multiple talents to help with this, and as long as you are strategic, your Blade Dancer should definitely stay up on their feet. Take all of these mechanics together and then imagine if you were a psyker applying burning and poison to your enemies, or if you added Executioner on top of that and consistently bled enemies as well. It's a very powerful combination and super fun, especially early in the game when it always feels like you are riding on the edge. On top of all this, Blade Dancer also has the 4th best heroic act in the game, Death Waltz, which allows you to use Death from Above against a target enemy without spending a charge, and then you're going to repeatedly use that ability against a number of targets that scales with your agility bonus. This is absolutely bananas, and in the right situation, it's a straight up boss killer. Great stuff. Another major advantage of being Blade Dancer compared to all other archetypes is that it's very easy to look the part. As I mentioned before, you can only use this option if you have purchased the Void Shadows expansion. That content added a host of weapons, armor, and accessories that are specifically meant to be used with your Blade Dancer. This makes it significantly easier to actually roleplay as your archetype because your look can easily align with who you are supposed to be. By the end of the game, you won't look like an officer or a grand strategist or an overseer, but you can absolutely look like a Blade Dancer from the start of the campaign all the way to the end of it. The one disadvantage of this archetype, and for some it's going to be a big deal, is that you must use a sword for the keystone features to work. So unlike warrior or operative, you don't have the freedom to mix and match between whatever melee weapons you might prefer. As long as you don't mind sticking with one weapon type, Blade Dancer will make you feel like a deity come to life. Number 2 on this list is Officer. This is the most important archetype in Rogue Trader, and frankly, I think it's one of the most amazing support classes in all of gaming. As far as ease of combat, nothing matters more than how many officers you have on your team. There should be at least one, but honestly, you want 2. Running with 0 officers significantly increases the difficulty of encounters. Usually playing a support focused role is very dull compared to your companions dealing so much damage. Officer never feels that way, and it's a blast role playing as a character who pushes the entire team up to their limits. The keystone feature is voice of command, and this allows you to increase one ally's characteristics by a massive amount that scales with your fellowship bonus for 1 round. This also allows you to target this character with all of your officer abilities from any distance. This is an incredible way to make one character significantly more powerful for a limited stretch of time. That's great on its own, but it truly becomes game breaking at level 3 when you can combine it with Bring It Down. This ability grants one character an extra turn with 2 action points and no movement points. This ally also gains additional momentum if they are under the effect of voice of command and kill an enemy before this extra turn ends. The heroic act for this archetype is basically Bring It Down on steroids. Finest Hour lets you grant one ally an extra turn with no attack limit along with full action and movement points. There's simply no character who doesn't substantially benefit from having this heroic act placed on them. You can also take upgrades that significantly increase the ally's damage and reduce the cost of their non-attacking abilities. In my opinion, this is the most powerful heroic act in the entire game. So basically what you want to do is identify the primary damage dealer for your team and then pair an officer with them. Every time the officer's turn comes around, they should be buffing that ally and giving them an extra turn to wreak havoc on the field. You can take the move ability, which will allow allies to navigate into position first, and then you can give them the extra turn so their attacks will always have maximum effectiveness. This becomes even more incredible when you realize the turn rotation for all combatants can clearly be seen on the left side of the screen. So not only can you give your allies extra turns, but you can specifically focus on eliminating the enemies who have turns coming up to help ensure that only your team is able to act. It's very simple to consistently have fights where the other side never has an opportunity to do anything. You cannot use this ability on the same ally more than once per round. Therefore, it's useful to have 2 officers on the squad who can do this with 2 different damage dealers. Then your remaining 2 party members can focus on skills, buffs, and mopping up whatever enemies are left. Simply put, officers make the entire game easier, and it's so much fun having one on the squad. But there can only be one king on the mountaintop, and without question, it is Exemplar. Of course, all characters will eventually reach this archetype, so I hesitated even putting it on the list, but frankly, it's so awesome that it felt wrong not to talk about it. Unlike other archetypes, Exemplar does not provide any keystone features or heroic acts. Instead, it provides a massive list of the most bonkers talents available in the game. And every playthrough at some point, I will take Eager for Battle, which provides 2 additional action points on your first turn. As I mentioned before, the goal is to ensure your enemies can never act, so your first turn in combat is the most important one, and having enough action points to activate all possible buffs is essential. Death Dealer is also essential for all of my damage focused characters. This is going to trigger when you kill your first enemy in a round, and it's going to allow you to automatically make another attack against the closest enemy who you are able to reach. Very, very nice, and just basically doubles your offensive output, especially if you are a ranged character. In addition to all of this, Exemplar is going to allow you to go back and choose from the talents and abilities in your tier 1 and tier 2 archetypes that you had to leave behind, allowing you to really flesh out your build. Also, you will have access to increase all of the characteristics and skills that are available in the game. It doesn't limit you to the specific ones the way your tier 1 and 2 archetypes previously did. And you're going to get 2 more action points by the time you completely max out this archetype all the way around. Before you even reach the midpoint of Exemplar, you are just going to feel indestructible, and most likely you are just completely steamrolling all of the competition in the game. Exemplar is definitely the most powerful archetype. And that completes my video ranking all of the archetypes in Rogue Trader. Again, I've already done a video ranking all of the companions, homeworlds, and origins in this game. So if you haven't already, be sure to check those videos out. There will be links in the description. Please let me know if there's any other content regarding Rogue Trader that you want to see that I have not done yet. I might go ahead, carve out some time, and make it happen. Be sure to like this video, share it with anyone who appreciates Rogue Trader content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hope all of you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.